the chairman of the bipartisan House Select Committee on Engagement with the Chinese Communist Party, is sadly from Wisconsin. Sadly, doesn't know anything about football, and he's in a funk because the Packers are 3-6 and my Browns are 6-3. But he's gotten over that, and he's back, and he's still writing great pieces for the Free Press that I used as my crib notes for the debate last week. Good morning, Congressman. I hope you liked your summary that I used of your op-ed last week from Miami.
I was honored. I was prepared to thank you, but then, of course, you just insulted me in the intro. Everyone who listens to your show knows that this is the highlight of the week. I suspect the ratings spike every time I come on. And then they go down when you start bashing the Packers.
There's no failure in
There's
sports.
a lesson in that.
Yeah, the CCP doesn't like the Packers either. So, are you back from San Francisco yet?
I am. Yep. I went there this weekend and did some spoke at a human rights event for a bunch of Chinese Americans who are protesting Xi Jinping's visit. A lot of things going on in preparation for APEC. Beyond the absurdity of Gavin Newsom cleaning up the streets of San Francisco in order to make it look good for his friend, a genocidal dictator, Xi Jinping, which illustrates the absurdity of forcing San Francisco residents every day to live with open-air drug use, rampant, homelessness, and human feces. But when a communist dictator comes to town, suddenly all notions of equity and social justice magically disappear. But also, of course, President Biden and Xi are expected to meet. My hope is that President Biden brings up issues like China's continued threats to Taiwan, human rights issues like China's jailing of the Hong Kong 47 and Jimmy Lai. I think the best that could possibly come out of this is the establishment of some sort of crisis communication channel. Think a military to military communication line. The Trump administration tried to set that up and the CCP refused. Biden's been trying and the CCP has refused. But really, 2 years of diplomacy have led to this meeting. We've sent multiple cabinet officials over there. We've delayed defensive action. We've taken our foot off the gas when it comes to the CCP just so Biden can sit down with Xi Jinping or go for a walk in the woods around San Francisco. So the stakes are very high, I think, for the Biden administration to show some tangible progress. And I'm worried that they'll commit to some meaningless working group, sing kumbaya. And the result is that we just, we'll have less energy behind our ability to push back on China's aggression.
Chairman, I asked 3 questions at last week's debate: fleet, size, and makeup. I asked about TikTok and I asked about opioids. I don't think we're getting any progress at all on any of these things. Chris Christie had the right answer, by the way, about submarines. That's what we need to build. TikTok needs to be banned, and we need to hold China accountable for this. But the news comes this morning that we're going to sign a deal limiting our AI reach into defense. And I cannot believe it. The one area where we have a clean and distinct lead, whether to underwater technology and our subs, and then AI. Who is running this? Chairman, who is running this summit? It's not Joe Biden.
No, here's what's happened over the last 2 years. The more dovish members of the administration, John Kerry, Janet Yellen, and others, seem to be winning out over the more hawkish members of the administration, whether it's certain DOD officials like Eli Ratner or certain National Security Council officials like Tarun Chhabra. I also think there's something else that explains this behavior, where we limit action and we thereby give China an advantage in the hopes that somehow they're going to play nice, despite decades of evidence and recent evidence that when we pull our punches, they get more aggressive. So, for example, we send our commerce secretary over to China. What do the Chinese do? They hack the emails of the commerce secretary, right? We've had no meaningful transparency into things like the spy balloon incident, the origins of COVID, the list goes on and on. But lurking in the background of this, I wonder, is just the president's weak position politically, his desire not to rock the boat economically heading into an election, and the perception that if we provoke China, it could hurt us and thereby hurt the president's electoral prospects. I hate to be cynical, but I've sort of tried to find an alternative explanation, and that's the one I've arrived at. If you read Jake Sullivan's Foreign Affairs piece as well, and
the original one,
that infamous,
the original
yes,
one,
exactly. the original one where they claim credit for the Middle East being, calmer than at any time in recent history and progress on Middle East peace issues. And then, of course, they got mugged by reality on October 7th in Gaza and Israel. But he also at the end has a short section where he says, we have areas where we need to cooperate with China where our interests align. And he specifically calls out AI. I'm starting to see this narrative appear, not only from the administration, but from some prominent voices like Elon Musk, who have said that when it comes to AI, the Chinese Communist Party is on Team Humanity. And the theory is that because AI could pose a risk to the regime itself, they have an interest in working with us on sensible regulation. I find this to be incredibly naive because, of course, the CCP is on Team Genocide, not Team Humanity. But also, there's no question that if they dominate this technology, if they control the commanding heights of AI, quantum, synthetic biotech, and a few other key technologies, they will use it for evil. They will use it to further perfect their techno-totalitarian regime and then export that model of governance around the world. I worry that this is going to become the new sort of climate change, the thing that, smart center left people can say, well, here's where we can work with the CCP, even as we're competing in other areas. But the result is that we don't attack this with a sense of urgency, and they expand their influence at the expense of our interests.
I love that term, techno-totalitarians. We're going to steal that from you, Congressman. I want to close with this. In the discussion yesterday on Comfortably Smug, Ambassador Haley, and I'm Switzerland like you are. We don't endorse in the presidential race. I don't think you have endorsed, and I'm not going to endorse. But I do listen to everybody. Ambassador Haley put forward the proposition that we need to have identification of people who use social media. Now, I don't believe she means that online. I mean, she means it at the gateway because she's after the China bots, the Russia bots, the Iranian bots, the terror bots. And I agree with her on that. But a lot of conservatives immediately rile up and they say, look at the Twitter files. We can't trust people with our IDs. What do you think is the appropriate resolution between national security and the First Amendment?
Well, the first thing to say is, in light of the question you asked at the debate on TikTok, I want to make sure that we don't conflate the sort of thorny issue of American social media companies and the privacy issues that are bound up in those questions, and also this set of issues around Section 230 and whether social media companies should be liable for what's posted on their platform, and an entirely separate issue in my mind, which is foreign ownership, foreign adversary control of a social media company in America. There's no question in my mind that you can legally, practically preclude a hostile foreign adversary from controlling a tech or social media company in America without getting into all the thorny free speech or privacy issues. So I just don't want to see those two things conflated. One small step that has always made sense to me when it comes to our social media companies here in America, if we're concerned about Chinese bots and disinformation and all that stuff. And this really, I think, is much smaller than what Ambassador Haley is presenting. Why, as a matter of basic reciprocity, do we allow hostile foreign regimes like the Chinese Communist Party to have their apparatchiks, their propagandists, have accounts and spread anti-American propaganda all over these platforms when, of course, these platforms are not allowed in China? Right? Your average Chinese citizen can't get on X, and yet every wolf warrior diplomat is on X saying that the pandemic started at an American lab and saying that America is a systemically racist place. That's never made sense to me at all. A broader thing I think we need to consider is is data portability, basically for people to own their data and be able to take it from one platform to another. I actually think that would create more competition over time. So just a few thoughts, and I'll admit I have not reviewed Ambassador Haley's proposal in depth.
Well, I want everyone to review your article in the Free Press, Barry Weiss's amazing article. That's what we used for the prep for the debate, and it's a well-written, comprehensive piece on TikTok. It's at the Free Press. Just do Google Mike Gallagher, Free Press, and TikTok. You'll get it. Mr. Chairman, I hope the Packers finish at least at 500, but I don't think so. Good luck to you. Thank